2017 Contender with my son Cole at Gus's Toy Box in Key Largo, Florida. Gus's Toy Box has got a lot of different contenders here. A lot the same, but many boats. Good high quality boats in Key Largo.
So here we go, we're gonna read the fault codes. It's a brand new engine, so there shouldn't be anything. There is not. We're just gonna hit OK. And what we'll do is we'll go to system data, engine operation hours. Shows me the breakdown and the total time, 103.6 on the port. Most of the time is spent between 4,000 and 5,000. This is port. Between 4,000 and 5,000 and 1,000 and 2,000. So there's that. Just check into the ECU data, see if there's anything special in there. There's not. Come back over to, we'll go ahead and start. Actuate components, ignition coil. This is the coil check, it explains it. Watch for flare-ups. Initial conditions, engine must be stopped, gear shifted neutral.
And what we have here is we have a spark gap tester hooked to the number 1. And we're gonna go ahead and light off the number 1 coil. Yeah, a little hard to see. Hang on. Let's try it again, Cole. Yeah, with the daylight, it's a little hard to see, but it's popping and sparking in there. Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna do the injector testing. This is the activation. It tells you about it, tells you the conditions. Then we'll come. These injectors are banked, so it's injectors 1 and 4. This is a listen test, so you'll go over there. I will activate it, it'll fire them off for 5 seconds. 3 seconds, realistic. Test is complete. We'll go to injectors 2 and 3. You hear them, they work. We accept that, back out of that.
Fuel pump.
The next test is a fuel pump, this is just a listen test.
This is a listen test.
Seconds.
That pump runs for 5 seconds, he says, and then so that's the fuel pump. Except
the last thing that we're allowed to actuate is the idle air control valve. So I'll go into here, neutral, blah blah blah, and we have 80, 75, 70%, and back down to 0. It didn't give me any code. We're set. During the execution, at least 1 graph. We'll look at the graph. As you can see, the opening angle of the IAC valve has opened all the way to 85%, dropped down to 70%, and is good for the rest of the test. So what we will do is we will accept that, and then that's it for actuations.
Okay, so what other features, what else is available to you in the menu on the side there for Cojali?
Cojali also does diagrams for the, let's see, the 1.7 and the 1.8. I believe that this is the 1.7.
Okay, no problem.
So it is a wiring diagram, and it will open up the wiring diagram of the 1.7 liter 115, and you can go to specific components.
So go to that component. What is it showing me there? Is that actually showing me what it looks like, or where it's at?
So this shows you the location. This is engine tilt and trim adjustment switch, which is here.
Okay.
Which on this specific engine is here.
Right.
And I see that this is...
But all this is the ECM, right? In the middle? And where it
Yes.
comes out of?
So this is the ECM. This is your pins to the ECM. So this is pin 6, which goes to an oil pressure switch. Pin 22 goes to your injector 1. 23 is injector 2. And then if you look here, that is your power for your injectors.
So basically what you're saying is if we had a question of whether or not the wiring harness was good or not and operating that one injector, we could go back to the pin next to the ECU.
Correct.
And go to the plug to the injector.
Correct. And it will show you the pin layout on the ECU. It will show you the numbers to the pins and A and B. And then we can come out here and look. And this is 22A. Oops. So this is A side, pin 22 and 23. Pin 22 is injector cylinder 1. Pin 23 is injector cylinder 2. And it'll tell you where the wiring goes in between there. It will not tell you where the wiring is. It'll tell you how the wiring is wired.
Right.
In other words,
it could be broken anywhere in somewhere around the engine.
Right. This is just a basic diagram explaining where that wire goes and what it connects to. So any kind of wiring diagram, you see the little
jump
overs, that's not connected. Your dots are connections.
Right. And over here, what's the vessel service data? We get anything in there?
So we can.
So this is where your technical releases and maintenance and services.
We can open general. We can look at our 1,000-hour interval. Replace timing belt. Check sealing and fixing of the exhaust manifold. The 300-hour is cooling system, impeller, and water pump.
Now, is this consistent on every engine, or is this based on how new the engine is, or?
This is usually based on the age of the engine. Older engines, you don't get as in depth as this can. So, in example, later 90s engines may or may not have this. Majority of the time, Yamaha tends to have this kind of thing. Yamaha has done a lot to put out their maintenance and how they want things maintained. Specifically, you know, the 1,000-hour marks, that's a big thing about replacing the timing belt.
Right.
You know, but Evinrude is also pretty good about this.
Tell you how to?
It does not. So it doesn't tell you how to do it. That's just a report list and preview.
Okay. So it tells you what you got to do.
Right. And then your annual service and your interval 100-hour. And cooling, electrical, engine compartment, generic, transfer case, you know, oil, no weird noises, state of external air node, cylinder head anode. Those are just things that need. Check it, propeller, cotter pin. You know, this is pretty in depth.
So what's the next thing on the side there? Vehicle technical data.
Technical data. You need internet connection for that.
Yeah, we need to connect to the internet, but we're out in the field right now.
We're out in the field, so I don't necessarily have internet
all the time
immediately. But we can come back to the diagnostic.
What do you think of the troubleshooting at the bottom?
Go to it. No, that's an internet thing. It has this little symbol right here that shows internet, if it needs internet or not.
Oh, okay. But that was something that we'd need internet for.
Yes. But the biggest thing is that you can actuate components, and then the other thing I wanted to show here is your system check. Your system check, fully open the idle control valve, and then the opening angle of the control valve can also be done. But the engine has to be running at idle for this to work. Usually,
and it tells you that, didn't it?
Yes, it does.
Right there.
It'll always tell you the initial conditions needed for the test. So specifically this one, the opening angle of the idle control valve, initial conditions that must be met is the engine has to be at idle and the gear shift must be in neutral.
So what are you going to do now, now that you've checked this engine out?
Now at this point, we can come up here and preview our diagnostic report. This diagnostic report takes everything that I've done, to include engine hours and everything, and puts it on the report. If I go through the GRP setup and I enter the customer's name and all the other stuff, I can put all that stuff on this form specifically and link it to a specific customer.
Right. But we just kind of go with the ECU reference number.
We do. We pretty much just put this together. But as you can see, it's done. It showed me everything I've done. So I read the fault codes, I read the engine hours, I did the ECU data, and then right here it says actuate components, ignition coil. There's the ignition coil test. Here is the testing that I did. You see 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, as well as the injectors. You see here, I tested the injectors, 1 and 4 and 2 and 3. The fuel pump I actuated, the actuate component, the idle air control valve I actuated. Here's the graph of the idle control valve, and then my system checks.
Okay. Can you enter comments on this?
Directly on this, no, because this is a preview. However, if I were to link this to a customer, then I would be able to go in and add notes and comments, usually down at the bottom. Usually it'll say down here, notes.
Anything else? How do you feel about Cojali?
I like Cojali more than any other diagnostic computer system that I've used. Personally, I think that the interface is a lot easier to get through. I think that it's very self-explanatory, and if it's not, it explains how to do things. There are limitations to Cojali, but there are limitations to every diagnostic software that's out there. I think that the benefits of Cojali being able to move from, say, this Yamaha to that Verado, it outweighs anything that Cojali would lack in. You know, and Cojali's been very helpful on moving forward and getting the brand new engines, as an example of those 450s over there on that big contender. You know, they were working very hard to be able to have their software work with that, with brand new 2020 engines, as an example. And you know, the backlog of engines that we can diagnose is a lot greater than every other computer system that I've personally used. I can get into older Mercuries, so I love it.